Let's start from the start, shall we, Stevie? In that we're used to Liverpool coming out the blocks in these games, really pressing high, the Anfield crowd, everyone getting in on the opposition. We saw none of that.
No, sitting back.
Why not?
I don't know. I mean, you have to think that that was the message that Klopp sent them out with. Because we're used to, straight off the bat, getting after it, as I said. But this was sit deeper a little bit, and then gradually we'll go forward as they pass it about, which didn't work. But they continued to do that. At no stage did Liverpool go full throttle, closing the ball down. They were trying to be calculated. That's not when Liverpool are at their best. Liverpool are at their best when they put pressure on the opposition right from the get-go, right on top of their own box. They didn't do that at all, and they paid the penalty for it.
Why don't we see any goals?
You can't criticise Bayern Munich. They've got a defence that's... OK, they're catching Dortmund in the Bundesliga, but they've got a defence that's been torn apart at times in the Bundesliga. It's been really shaky. Sula and Hummels as a partnership. But Liverpool didn't really test them enough, and you can't blame them for not having a proper shot on target. They kept it tight with the three in the middle. They didn't push up the field too high to allow the runners in behind, and they soaked up what pressure there was. I think the difference with Liverpool is last year's Liverpool were far more dynamic. Although they're having a better season, certainly domestically, last season's Liverpool were a kind of all-guns, dynamic, blazing, shut them down, 100 mile an hour from the start. They've been like that sometimes this season, but not all the time. He's kind of pulled the reins a little bit in certain matches where they've not come out the blocks.
So is this Klopp's doing? Like the way we saw them start the match today, was this...
Well, if you watch them this year, they haven't been flying out the blocks as often as they were last year. They've been a little bit more conservative. And actually, I think tonight needed a little bit of the Liverpool of last year.
Yeah.
It absolutely needed, as Stevie said, to get the Anfield crowd buzzing from that first minute and put them under pressure, put Sula and Hummels under pressure.
The best version of Liverpool is the one that creates a little bit of chaos on the field, that troubles not only the back line, but troubles their midfield, that troubles everybody in the field. Everybody on the other team is uncomfortable. They never really created that. I don't think this version of Liverpool can be passive and expect to get the results that they want. Because at their very best, they generate that energy that you guys are talking about. That Anfield gets behind the team, and you feel it. Even us watching it, we can feel it. But we could also feel today that it was quiet at Anfield.
Yeah.
That it was also passive, because the anxiety and the nerves and the passive attitude of the players, also the fans feel it. And when they get passive and when they get defensive, then it also translates in a team that really did not create the sort of opportunities that they should have, and did not create the individual performances that they should have as well.
You try and think of why.
Yeah.
And there can be no way that Klopp says to his men before the game, I want you to sit back and then calmly go forward. It surely can't be, because if it was, that's completely wrong. Is it the middle three have never played together? I don't think Keita, Wijnaldum and Henderson have played together. And actually, in the last couple of months, Liverpool have chopped and changed in the middle of the park because of injuries. Sometimes it's Milner, sometimes he's right back, sometimes it's Henderson, hasn't played that much. Keita hasn't been particularly great. You know, Liverpool, for me, the best three at what we're talking about, closing the ball and getting around the opposition, is Milner, Henderson and Wijnaldum. And that didn't happen.
I think Glenn Price is a little generous. Henderson at 9.
Huh? Why? Why?
On this,
I really don't see why.
What stands out and what stood out and what we talked about a lot whilst watching the game together was Salah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we had a discussion in here last week, I think it was, or the week before. I think somebody asked us a question on Extra Time. Who would you take at the moment, Sterling from Man City or Mo Salah? Which was a very good question, and I think we all came to the conclusion just it was Sterling right at the moment, because he's playing ever so well. Every facet of his game is great. And whilst you can have bad games, and whilst Salah's goal return this season has been good, a lot of the games were a bit like today, where he looked as if he was trying to do everything. And I know it was tight. I know Bayern defended well, but everything was in a rush. You know, every touch was in a rush, and there was too many touches at the time, and it was bobbling off him. And I kind of think that's where he is at the moment. And it's you know, he's popping up with the odd goal. I get that, and his return is good. But his overall performances for the team compared to last year are I think, quite a way down.
What's changed?
I think teams are definitely sitting further off Liverpool, which means that when he's picking the ball up, and not just him, you've got to say Firmino and Mane as well.
Yeah.
When they're picking the ball up, there are so many more bodies around them. You know, when I think of Liverpool last year, I think of space and them breaking into it. And really, you've got to give Bayern credit. You know, they did sit off and they made it tough. And they made it so that Liverpool did not have any room to get in behind them.
But they won't do that in Germany. So it's
well, they won't do that in Germany. But the problem is, I'm looking at Liverpool in the qualifying and the group, and they lost away from home in every single game and didn't perform well in any of them. Even Red Star, they got well beaten. That's a worry. Yes, you expect Bayern to come out, but
the glass half empty again.
It's absolutely half empty.
Well, but we talk about the lack of that dynamic movement that you want to see from Liverpool at home, and I think it really starts with the front three. Those guys last year, and we keep referring to last year because that's what we have to compare
that's the
with.
level.
Yeah, and so we have seen them at their very best when they're willing, able, and capable of getting pressure on people right away. And because they get themselves going, their level of energy and their level of productivity also gets themselves going and gets everybody else behind them going. If Liverpool is able to create turnovers on their attacking half, there's no better team, certainly in the Premier League, in getting that ball and then first pass forward, and now we're going on the counter because we have those sort of players and we have that sort of personality. But when your front three is sitting at the midway line, you're sending a message to everybody else behind you. And so whether it was by design or whether it was because Liverpool was passive to begin the game with, whatever the case might have been, it was the wrong approach.